There is awareness, and within awareness there's a lot of things going on. So there are now two possibilities. This awareness can identify with the things that are going on, or it can identify with itself. When the awareness identifies with things that are going on, then that's what it becomes. That's what it gets involved in. That's what it gets lost in. That's what it gets conditioned by. When awareness is aware of itself, when it's resting in itself, we cannot say it's lost in itself at this point, it's when it's resting in itself, then this is freedom. It's freedom from the conditioned. Vasishta continued, when the self, self-forgetfully, identifies itself with the objects seen and experienced, and is thus impurified, there arises the poison of craving. So the self here is another word for awareness. And it gets identified with the objects that arise within it, and the poison of craving arises. This craving intensifies delusion. In other words, the conditioning is a feedback process whereby the conditioning gets more and more pronounced. This is delusion. Gods like Shiva, etc., may be able to cope with the fires of cosmic dissolution, but it is impossible for anyone to deal with the consuming fire of craving. So perhaps that's what was meant previously when it was talking about the mind consuming everything. That was back in chapter 13. I don't think people in general have a problem saying that craving is a bad thing. You don't have to be involved in spiritual inquiry to say that, yes, craving, we must do something about it. You know, much of modern Western society is geared up to recycling, to trying to prevent global warming, which is seen as caused by human behaviour. Well, that's what we're told anyway, that great efforts are being made to do something about this. We can see it more directly in terms of pollution caused by industry and cars and so on, and rubbish. We can also see it on a personal level, not just a social level, the damage that craving can do, both to oneself and to others around. Whether it's some kind of addiction, whether it's emotional craving, or just plain selfishness. All these things can be very damaging. So there's not really a problem with understanding that craving is not a good thing by and large. But for those of us who are interested in getting beyond notions, getting towards the heart of things, which is this self, which is this awareness, then the craving takes far more insidious and subtle forms. I think we have to put religion into that class. I was watching an interview last night on the BBC News with a churchman, the head of the Catholic Church in England actually, and he was being interviewed about some recent proposals going through the British Houses of Parliament. I thought it was strange, astonishing in fact, that the Church assumes some kind of moral authority, that it even has some kind of input into any debate on morality. And I wonder why this should be. Why should the church assume some kind of moral authority? And is it just the church that does this? Probably most people of religious disposition consider themselves to be of superior moral worth. And I lived in the Middle East for a while, and it was a common assumption that we in the West were a morally degenerate bunch. That's certainly some of the justification for the suicide bombers to blow us to bits. And what struck me as preposterous is they're assuming this moral authority on the basis of the most ridiculous beliefs. They seem to be saying, I believe such and such, therefore I am a moral authority. You just got to look at the history of the church or of any religion basically to see that it's the history of closed-minded ignorance. I think it starts off perhaps wholesomely enough as craving for truth. Do we not have a craving for truth? Surely that's a good thing. Well, yes, it is. But what happens is, because we're thinking beings, we want to express our truth as thoughts, as statements of belief. And this is where the great perversion comes from. The great perversion is then believing these statements of belief to be the truth when they're not. They're not. This is the great perversion, not understanding the distinction between beliefs and truth. And this is what the Yoga Vasishta is addressing. People that have beliefs believe that they are right. And that, ipso facto, by the fact itself, gives them moral authority. And this is why belief is such a desirable thing, because it gives us moral authority. It makes us right, or it allows us to say that we are right. That might just stop at leaving you feeling quite nice in yourself, or it might make you feel that you've got to go out and hit other people over the head with your beliefs. So this is something that we need to watch out for. If you're actually interested in spiritual inquiry, if you are actually interested in what is really going on, then beware beliefs. This need to believe, this need to be correct, to be right, I think tends to arise most prominently in young men for some reason. So any young men out there watching this, have a look at your tendency to want to be right, to want to find something to believe in. You might say that you're just interested in getting to the truth. Well, that's great. In which case, don't settle for any beliefs.